Hey guys, so today's video is one where I will try not to get annoyed or be rude, but whenever I try, I fail. So let's just go into it. Subscribe with the bell icon for engagement, and let's get into it. So we're back to working with my favorite brand of all time, Wild, and you can use code Angelika July at wearewild.com for 20% off your order, or just click the link in the description. It's a brand that I basically use daily because you use deodorant daily. So every time I use it, I just think about how much I love working with them and how much I love the products. But they sent me a new case and a new scent, and I can't wait to show it to you guys. This is the Sunset case. It's absolutely beautiful. This is going to be my new go-to case, and I say that every time they see me a new case. I'm like, wow, this is my new go-to case. And the scent is Tropical Sorbet, and it sounds and looks absolutely stunning, and it smells just as good. Literally a tropical sorbet. So the actual cases are your forever cases. They are reusable. Once you buy one, you don't have to buy another one if you don't want to. You can have multiple if you want to, but that's not the point. You can just have one. They're also customizable. You can get them engraved with your name or whatever you want it to say. And there are a bunch of colors as well. So there are like the staple colors that they have, and they also come out with limited edition ones, which are usually my favorites. I love just collecting them, and I love just having an array of limited edition cases. The actual refills are packaged in bamboo pulp, which means they can be both composted or recycled. And the deodorant uses natural ingredients, including shea butter to nourish your armpits, which has been working amazing for me because I have sensitive skin and I get dry if I use a regular deodorant. Wild also contains no aluminium, salt, or paraben, so it won't block your pores and cause more damage in the long run. My experience has been nothing but amazing. Like, my transition period from using other deodorants to Wild was super smooth. I didn't really notice anything like being out of whack. Like, I didn't notice any extra smells, anything like that. I think Wild, for being a natural deodorant, is super strong. So if you're used to strong deodorants, you can rely on Wild. I feel like they also have these amazing scents that like help with the workings of the deodorant. The shea butter nourishes my armpits. It's the only thing that doesn't break me out. If I try to use any other deodorant, let's say if I ran out of Wild and I used a different deodorant that I just found somewhere, my armpits would immediately just flare up. I would have dry patches, I would be itchy, and it just wouldn't be a fun time. I also think this is amazing for if you shave your armpits, because shaving can cause some sensitivities to the skin, and because Wild is natural and with shea butter and it's nourishing and it's moisturizing, it doesn't have that same impact on a freshly shaved skin. Now, a few statistics. Wild has over 15,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, and they are now a certified B Corporation, which means that they have diverted 102 tons of plastic from landfills in 2022, because everything is either reusable, compostable, or recyclable. And this is why I love Wild. So you can use my code Angelika July to get 20% off your next order. I'm going to talk about two things today that have come together and created something awful, disgusting, nightmarish. Cosmopolitan and James Charles. What a start. James Charles is someone who was obviously cancelled during the Bye Sister situation, and then he managed to redeem himself with No More Lies, because people love to flip-flop, and there really wasn't like enough concrete evidence. It was all just like word of mouth. So he was redeemed, and then more boys came out to discuss how he would try to flirt with boys, use his Explore page as a dating scene, a dating app, and would send allegedly nudes to underage boys, whether he knew they were underage or not. When you go on the internet and you seek out boys that look relatively young, and you don't confirm their ages, and you don't get them to send you their ID, I mean, not your ID, you end up in situations like this. And I just have lost all sympathy for James. I think, you know, he posted that apology video. He was like, I'm desperate.
I'm desperate.
I am desperate, and that's why I message young boys on the internet.
I didn't understand how a situation like this could affect the people involved, but now I do. And for that, to the victims, I am so sorry.
And then he deleted that apology video and then posted another one, and then it's just like, it's a constant, I don't know how he has any fans. He's coming out with this company called Painted, which is going to be a makeup brand, and he's been like working on this for a while, and he keeps on pushing it back for reasons unknown. Well, known, but it's just like, this is long gone. Like, this train has passed, this train is gone, this train has left the station, this train is actually in another country. Like, why are we coming out with a makeup brand in 2023 when you were cancelled in essentially like 2018? And you've only gotten more and more cancelled since then, because you don't stop and things just keep on coming out about you. Now, I know there are a lot of people on Twitter right now bringing back up allegations against James Charles just so that you don't forget. And there was even a video, well, there was an interview he did with Impulsive, which is Logan Paul's podcast, where he did say that he goes for younger boys.
So the thing is, for me, I'm 21, but like I said, I have the mentality of a 40-year-old.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I'm much more mentally and emotionally mature than a lot of people my age. I'm not physically attracted to older guys, which sucks. Like, I would date like the absolute youngest, like 18, 19 that looks a little bit older, or like 24 that like has a young personality.
Okay.
He tries to make it sound legal, which, I mean, I'm sure he meant it in a legal way. I don't think he actively wants, I don't even know what he actively wants to do anymore. He just constantly, like, makes the same mistake that leads to the same consequence. And at that point, like, you're doing it kind of intentionally. If you keep on doing the same thing and it leads to the same effect, like, why would you keep on doing that thing, right? Like, if I keep on kicking my table and, like, my toes are gonna hurt, right? Like, so then if I don't want my toes to hurt, I have to, like, stop kicking the table. I don't know. Like, at that point, me kicking the table is obviously an intentional thing I'm doing that I know is causing me pain. Same as James Charles. Like, even if he doesn't really intend to message young boys, like underage boys, in a sexual manner, because that is illegal, he is definitely intending on looking for young looking boys on social media who may or may not have their age in their bio. And that leads to him sending inappropriate messages / pictures / videos to underage boys and then getting exposed for it. If the effect is always the same, why do you keep on repeating the like step-by-step manual? You know what I mean? There are just so many allegations out there. I don't have to go over all of them. We've been here. Like, if you know me, you know this situation. You've been here. You've been here with me. And we know that James Charles is guilty of things, because if he wasn't guilty, he wouldn't have posted an apology video. And that's just what I'm going to stick with. If you post an apology video, you consider yourself guilty to some extent. And that is what I'm sticking with. Anyway, Cosmopolitan decided to post a god-awful article. I don't know if Cosmopolitan is known for, like, incredible journalism, but this is not incredible journalism. This is actually written by Gabrielle Bluestone. Now, when you look at Gabrielle Bluestone, who I know people have looked at, she describes herself as a journalist, an attorney. This is where I have to say, like, professionals aren't always professional, and they're not always good at their jobs. Twice here. Journalist and attorney. Just because you have those words to describe yourself and you may have done some education, some formal education to get those titles, doesn't mean you're good at them. Not all journalists are good. Not all attorneys are good. That's just how the cookie crumbles. From New York, whose writing has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, New York Magazine, and Gawker, among others. She's the Emmy-nominated executive producer of Netflix Fire and the associate producer of Different Flowers, winners of the 2017 Kansas City Film Festival Prize. First book, Hype, was published in 2021. And this is her little article. So, the title of this article, which actually drives me insane, is James Charles would like to be uncancelled, please. How about you stop using social media as a dating app then? I don't know what to tell you. More than 2 years after allegations of sexual impropriety sent the superstar beauty YouTuber into influencer purgatory, he's hoping to relaunch himself and his brand. With the help of a new makeup line, in a wide-ranging interview with Cosmopolitan, Charles talks about fucking up and trying to move on. So he's trying to move on, but like, who says we have to move on? Because I'm sure as hell not moving on. That's just how I'm, you know. It's the year of our internet, 2023, and as surely as the sun rises, the internet celebrity has an apology to make. So here I am, sitting in James Charles's Encino mansion like a pop culture priest, ready to take his confession. Also, this whole, like, as surely as the sun rises, like, someone is gonna have to apologize. That's for sure. I think cancel culture sometimes does go way too far, and people are apologizing for just, like, anything. Breathing. Not breathing, talking, not talking. But surely, once again, I'm gonna repeat, messaging people whose age you can't confirm, who look relatively young in a sexual manner, on and on and on and on and on again, and getting exposed on and on and on and on and on again, is one of those things where, like, I stop feeling bad for you that you, like, have to apologize. And it's not one of those things like, this isn't cancel culture. This really isn't. This is just like, you're a shitty human being and we don't want to consume your content. That's it. That is it. That's what she wrote. Let's begin. Quotations. I don't want to sit here and fucking mope and whine and cry because nobody wants to hear it, says Charles, sinking into a plush couch in his casual open living room. Once again, I just can't feel bad because even the way you're writing this is, like, supposed to be aesthetic and, like, James Charles is this, like, cool influencer and he's, like, rich and he's, like, on his plush sofa, and it just makes him sound like a dickhead because you live in a $10 million mansion in LA. Like, cry me a fucking river. Like, we don't have to uncancel you. You've made your money. You can either choose to leave with the money that you've made, or you can choose to stay on the internet and put up with the consequences of your actions. Like, those are your two choices. I don't feel bad, I can't feel bad, and I will not feel bad. That's it. I had to do a lot of thinking. Like, okay, babe, this is your fault. No, you're not a pedophile. No, you're not a fucking groomer. No, you're not a predator, but you made a big mistake. And these like black and white pictures of James Charles, like I just can't take this seriously, I'm sorry. At this point, you're likely familiar with the specific quid pro quo inherent in celebrity profiles like this. The ones that come together post-cancellation after a respectable amount of time has passed, post-cancelable sin. It's no surprise that a star's willingness to answer intimate questions about a catastrophic stretch of their lives increases dramatically when they have a project to promote. In today's case, that's ostensibly Charles's new makeup line, Painted. But it's also Charles himself, a warrior. I literally can't take this seriously. I'm sorry. Like I said, just because you had some kind of formal education in journalism or law or anything like that doesn't mean you're good at any of those things. And I think we're seeing that this is written quite well. I enjoyed the dramatics, and like if the topics were different, maybe I'd enjoy reading this. But the like complete lack of taking this topic seriously, the complete disregard for the boys and how they were treated. As an attorney, like shame on you. You should actually be fucking ashamed of yourself. I would never, ever go to this person for any legal advice because wow, like just a complete lack of, I don't know, just selling your soul to what, spend some time with James Charles? Anyway, acceptably contrite, but still just a little extra Charles. This very interview is to be a trial balloon. Its reception, the answer to the question both of us, and maybe you too, if what auto-populates in Google search can be believed, are here to ask, is James Charles still cancelled? Yes and no. Does he still get views that pay good money? Sure. Are the views as good as they used to be? No. So was he cancelled? I don't know, maybe. After all, would a still ousted person be allowed to pose for red carpet cameras at the People's Choice Awards, chat amicably with paparazzi while out and about in Hollywood? Would a still banished person have hundreds of thousands of fans enthusiastically engage with his YouTube beauty tutorials? Would a truly exiled person be 24 years old and living in a reportedly $7 million farmhouse that looks like a cross between the homes featured in the later seasons of Vanderpump Rules and any season of all iterations of the Kardashians? You know, black and white, modern exteriors, hyper-organized interiors. When I arrived, I noticed Oreos decanted into glass jars on a pristine marble kitchen island. A display technique first popularized by Khloe Kardashian back when Charles was still in high school. Charles's two dogs, also black and white, were playing nearby. I was gonna say placed nearby. That is not what they were. They were playing nearby. And the thing is, to a lot of these questions, like someone can be an awful person and still be famous, as if we don't know so many famous people who are awful people, and they continue to be at red carpet events, they continue to be at awards ceremonies, they continue to be celebrated despite being awful people. Does that mean we all have to be like, if they're invited to the red carpet event, surely they're a good person, we have to support them? Like, no, of course not. Use your fucking brain. What's so difficult to understand? I don't get it. There's a lot riding on the answer. Painted, a solo venture 4 years in the making, launches in just a few weeks. People speculated that I have partners or investors, which I don't know how that rumor got started, Charles says. The design is fully self-funded. Every single dollar that's gone into the brand has been from my personal savings and checking accounts. I have no investors, no partners, no billion-dollar backers behind me. Which I guess a bit shade to Jaclyn Hill, since she was backed by former. When I polled friends and colleagues about Charles in the run-up to this day, the general consensus was that he had done something bad, but no one was clear on exactly what. And you didn't think to what research. Even I, a law school dropout, knew that you had to research for law school. That neither of us knows how it will go is due to the murky nature of cancel culture and its crisscrossing tripwires of implied and loosely enforced rules. And because of a hungry and fickle internet that doles out forgiveness, or maybe just forgetfulness, seemingly at whim. It's a landscape, hellscape, some would say, in which all comebacks are tentative and where the conversation around an offense often ends up obscuring the offense itself. When I polled friends and colleagues about Charles in the run-up to this day, the general consensus was that he had done something bad, but no one was clear on what exactly. As a very online millennial, I had long been ambiently aware of Charles while also knowing next to nothing about him. The influencer's platonic ideal. Bored at home during the pandemic, I watched the Dramageddon feud he had with another YouTuber whose name I can never remember, and hilariously non-scandal scandal that possibly had something to do with hair vitamins. Anecdotally, it seems like everyone in my life under the age of 25 considers Charles an internet celebrity, and no one over 45 has ever heard of him, unless they have kids. Those in the former group know that he's been famous since his teen years, although his storylines, so to speak, are all self-produced. Charles first went viral in 2016 after he bought a ring light and used glossy highlighter to accentuate his cheekbones for his high school yearbook photo. Suddenly he was everywhere. The first male spokesperson for CoverGirl, a guest on Ellen, he did a commercial with Katy Perry, filmed with the Kardashians, and hosted a YouTube reality competition show aptly titled Instant Influencer. Which if you did any ounce of research, you would know that that whole high school yearbook thing was faked by him to drum up interest. The combination of his fresh-faced, youthful earnestness and bold maximalist aesthetic made him out of the most financially successful beauty YouTubers of all time, with a rumored annual income of more than 10 million in 2020. At one point, he was so popular that a reported 30-second appearance he made at a British mall drew thousands of teenagers, helping create traffic gridlock so extreme that some drivers apparently abandoned their cars overnight. Yup, that did actually happen. In a corner of the internet known for constant sniping and backstabbing and a hopelessly convoluted rivalries, the same lack of guilt and perma-logged on status that drew viewers to Charles also made him a magnet for drama. You know what made him a magnet for drama? Maybe like messaging underage boys. I don't know, that's just my opinion, allegedly. There he was posting regular apologies for things like insensitive tweets about Africa and Ebola, or for asking Shawn Mendes to juggle me like that during an IG livestream in which Shawn literally juggled. Charles developed a reputation for kind of over-the-top thirstiness, a quality that could be interpreted as refreshingly candid or slightly cringe, depending on who you asked. The difference was it was obviously all aimed at straight men, and there was this whole thing that he was like obsessed with straight men and turning straight men gay, and then it happened that he was actually turning straight boys gay, allegedly, because they were like underage but also straight or bi-curious, and he was kind of being allegedly kind of forceful in his, you know, but that's all alleged information out there. At least one rival, it should be said, interpreted it differently. His drama-geddon opponent, initially, I also hate like the not naming Tati Westbrook but still having to discuss Tati Westbrook, because I know that he probably said don't mention Tati Westbrook by name, or like maybe legally they couldn't mention her, but they're still like talking about her, so like at least name her. You know? His drama-geddon opponent initially accused Charles of using his fame to manipulate straight men. True to influencer form, she retracted the claim and apologized a year later. Yet all the drama seemed to ultimately earn him one thing: more followers. At his peak, Charles had nearly 26 million YouTube subscribers, on top of tens of millions more on TikTok and Instagram. That was all before though. In February 2021, at age 21, Charles confronted a career crisis he couldn't quickly apologize for or capitalize on. He was publicly accused of sending lewd photos and inappropriate sexual messages to a then 16-year-old fan. Charles said he was misled into believing the boy was 18 and that he blocked him as soon as he learned the truth. I've never been more disgusted in my life than when I found out that the kid was 16 years old, Charles says now. I was mortified, absolutely mortified. The fan did not return Cosmopolitan's request for comment. I wouldn't either, with the way this article is playing out right now. Like, if you're gonna reach out for comment to someone who is a victim of a situation, and it's for an article where you've already got like a professional photographer, you've got like a whole, do you know what I mean? Like, clearly this is a one-sided article. This is an article to make James Charles look better, so why would this victim ever speak to you? You literally got black and white artistic pictures of James Charles in this article, and are constantly being like, well, I don't really know who James Charles is and I don't know what he's done, but it seems like people are just like obsessed with cancelling him, as you go on to describe the minors that he has spoken to in a sexual manner as an attorney. I don't know. The allegation triggered more complaints against Charles. They were primarily disseminated in the form of TikToks filled with screenshots of flirtatious conversations Charles had allegedly conducted with a number of male fans. A few of the reported accusations, like the initial one, were serious and claimed to detail inappropriate online interactions between Charles and minors. Other claims, including an incident in which Charles allegedly called someone daddy, felt muddier. Almost all of them were eventually rounded up into viral Twitter threads by a controversial poster who keeps track of internet scandals, now under fire himself. Yes, even the chronicling of this saga has been surreal and convoluted, and Cosmopolitan could not independently verify these messages, many of which have since been deleted. Another black and white picture of James Charles just staring off into the distance. In the end, substantiated or not, multiple media reports indicated that at least 15 boys and men had accused Charles of inappropriate behavior. Charles says now about the breadth of the allegations. The source of where the list came from was not doing any sort of research, no fact checking, and that's Def Noodles, if you guys don't know. Actually, I think Def Noodles himself said that only one of those turned out to be false, and all the rest of them seem to be semi-confirmed. So, I mean, I know that it's bad to report on one falsely and there should have been more research going into it, but it wasn't like all of them or the majority of them were confirmed false. Like, let's just make sure we're clear on that. Some of the screenshots depicted consensual conversations between adults, he says. Others were completely fake and never even happened. Charles has never been legally charged with engaging inappropriately with a minor, let alone proven to have knowingly done so. Nevertheless, that April, Charles uploaded a 14-minute video titled Holding Myself Accountable, where he admitted to inadvertently exchanging messages with two 16-year-old boys he said he was led to believe were 18, and he apologized for his desperate behavior. Also, this whole, like, from an attorney, it comes off even more muggy and slimy to say, he's never been legally charged or proven to have knowingly done so. Like, you know how difficult it is to pursue criminal charges as an attorney, and that just because someone hasn't been criminally charged doesn't mean they're not guilty, it just means they haven't been found guilty yet. And I understand that, it's innocent until proven guilty, yada yada. I just think this whole conversation is so one-sided that I can't even take it seriously, mainly from someone who calls themselves a journalist and an attorney. Cosmopolitan reached out to multiple people who said they were minors at the time of their exchange with Charles. One asked if we would be willing to pay and did not reply again when told our publication does not compensate sources for interviews. But another former accuser wrote back via Instagram DM with a new revelation. He said, already privately apologized to Charles a few months ago for telling him I was 18 a few years ago, and the TikTok I made that blew the situation up. When asked to elaborate, the person did not reply. Charles' team says someone did message Charles this spring admitting he lied about his age. If a celebrity with tens of millions of followers came sliding into your DMs would you respond? I probably would. Charles says he recognizes the power imbalance at play in his interactions online. He should have verified everyone's ages, he says, and been more sensitive to how his fame could color the way others responded to him. So like kind of hinting at power dynamics, power play. Oh, I absolutely did fuck up, he says, but he denies that he ever engaged in grooming, a practice defined by the anti-sexual violence organization RAINN as manipulative behaviors that an abuser uses to gain access to a potential victim, coerce them to agree to the abuse, and reduce the risk of being caught. Charles continues. I feel like that word is a very popular buzzword right now, especially in politics and stuff, but the actual meaning of it has been so misconstrued. Referring to the first allegation against him, he adds, the conversation lasted 1 hour. I don't know this person, I've never met this person, nothing happened between me and this actual person, so the use of that word is categorically incorrect. Then they mention, absence of hard evidence, hordes of commenters and bystanders gloomed onto the idea that Charles was creepy, irresponsible at best, possibly predatory at worst. His apology won in a burgeoning and much mocked genre of YouTube influencer mea culpa. What is this with like, did she think adding in a bunch of like thesaurus words would make this interview sound more intelligent? Because it still sounds really dumb. I'm struggling to read it. Was full-throated, but did nothing to quell the furor. After years of benefiting from online controversies, Charles had officially become too toxic for the internet. His YouTube page was demonetized. He did not return as the host of Instant Influencer, and his other business ventures languished. Now, he mentions Morphe here, which is, do you guys remember? Morphe dropped him. They said, we're dropping him because he's messaging minors and we will try to sell out all the stuff. They dropped him and Jeffree Star. He says, he and Morphe, an influencer-focused beauty brand, with which he'd partners on an eyeshadow palette and brushes, cut ties. Charles's team says this was done at their own request after they saw Morphe getting backlash for associating with Charles. Charles told me he pocketed a small amount from the deal that allowed him to buy his house and pay off his parents' mortgage. One estimate for his total loss of income in the millions. So he claims that he was the one that like cut ties with Morphe. Very interesting. First time I'm hearing this. I can't even begin to explain to you how bad that week of my life was. Charles remembers as he looks out of his backyard. This is so dramatic. I was crying myself to sleep every single night. I was sitting there in bed staring at my phone. I wanted to kill myself. I wasn't talking to anybody. People threw food into his yard and spray painted his property fence, prompting him to hire security. I think I've always been somebody who's been able to cope, he continues. I've been able to turn my phone off, to go to see my family, to have friends over, go to an escape room, watch a fun movie, play Mario Kart, play Minecraft, build a Lego set. But this situation was really scary because my coping mechanisms weren't coping. It was the first time where I was like, oh fuck, I actually don't know what to do here. I eventually got to the point where I was like, this is not healthy, this is not good, this is getting really, he's describing the whole thing. The fallout became deeply personal when his younger brother, who works as a model in New York City, stopped talking to him because of the allegations. It's now been 2 years since they last spoke, Charles says. If your own brother isn't speaking to you and has got no contact since then, that makes me think that there is something to these allegations. Treading a well-worn post-scandal path, Charles spent the next few months mostly offline doing a lot of self-reflection and conferring with mental health professionals. While a couple months may seem like a laughably short time for a break, to Charles having no stage felt like an endless punishment. I absolutely fucking hated it. He says, I'm somebody who likes to be busy at all times. I love filming. Having nothing to do drove me insane. So then they talk about an open conversation, which was the video that he did to come back to the internet with. And it quickly became YouTube's most disliked video of the week, according to Forbes, although it's been watched more than 6 million times to date. Then he discusses how difficult it is for him to find a partner, and this is where I find like James Shaw so laughable. He says, finding dating prospects in the rarefied influencer celebrity strata he eventually vaulted into was tough. Quickly, please name 5 famous male gay celebrities from the age of 20 to 25, he says. You can't because they don't exist. I feel like that's false. I feel like that's arguably false, but I don't know. So the internet, once again, he says, became an avenue for exploration. He started using TikTok's For You and Instagram's Explore pages as dating apps, as many people his age do, but admittedly ignored the pitfalls. His biggest mistakes, he now thinks, were making himself too available and recklessly hitting on anyone he thought might be showing him interest. His intention was never to prey on minors, he said. He tried to explain all of this in the Holding Myself Accountable video, but it just didn't come across right, he reflects. I've been fucked over by men so many different times. At this point, I just want a fucking boyfriend. Somebody that's gonna love me, that's gonna care for me. So a lot of times, I go into just talking to somebody with rose-colored glasses. The other thing is like using fame and money to get a guy to like you, because when he did have an interaction with someone recently who was of age, he was advertising it as like, you can have free trips and a multi-million-dollar mansion in LA and all of this. He advertises with monetary value rather than himself, and then he expects a different, once again, effect, like a different consequence. Now, this is a very important paragraph. He's more cautious now, although not so much that he's given up on the DM sliding completely. Instead, he started requiring potential romantic interests to provide IDs before he'll engage. I'm a club bouncer at this point. Earlier this year, a TikTok user shared snippets of flirtatious conversation he had with Charles, in which Charles outlined his requirements for a boyfriend. Charles also tells me he recently caught a 17-year-old trying to lie about his age by taking out a digit on his ID. And apparently he also hired a PR firm to help, and they were trying to get me, and every single one of them was a no. But ultimately, the gatekeepers, by some mysterious but increasingly common mixture of alchemy and time, softened. Charles started making significant appearances: the Grammys, Scream 6 premiere, Young Hollywood night hosted by Vanity Fair, and TikTok. Also, as you know, appeared at the Cosmopolitan party in LA. Now this Painted, they talk about Painted, I don't really care. Whether his efforts will be rewarded remains to be seen. For his part, Charles seems to believe in absolution, and not just for himself. So she ends it with saying, "These days it feels like our culture at large, for better or for worse, is haltingly reaching the same conclusion. After all, don't the medium cancelled now walk among us? This fall, while you perhaps wear a James Charles painted eyelid, you may find yourself baking out of Alison Roman's new cookbook, following Tinks on your Instagram feed, or thinking about reading Caroline Calloway's memoir. In our messy, imperfect way, maybe we're starting to calibrate our responses to the severity of an offender's offense. Maybe we've arrived at a point where we're doling out appropriate levels of social censure. Or maybe we're just tired of keeping score and ready to succumb to the path of least resistance, letting our feeds figure it out for us." Which is basically just saying, don't have any morals or ethics, just follow whoever appears on your For You page without looking into if they're an ethical person or not. I found this infuriating, and I hope you did too. But let me know what you guys think. Subscribe to the bell icon for engagement, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.